A federal judge just kept an $11 billion wind farm running after Trump tried to stop it. Scientists created a filter that stops microplastics before they can reach the ocean. And bears that spent their lives in cages are finally being rescued after 40 years. I'm Freddy, this is Good News, and here are plenty of good news stories that will make you smile. Our first story takes us to South Korea, where bear farming has finally been banned after 40 years. This January, the country officially ended bear farming and bile extraction. For over 1,000 years, bear bile has been valued in traditional Chinese medicine. Bile is a fluid that helps bears digest food. It can be used to treat liver disease. But it's also marketed for cancer, colds, and hangovers, despite having no scientific backing. In 1981, South Korea's government wanted to boost struggling rural farmers' incomes. They saw bear farming as a solution and imported nearly 500 bears from Southeast Asian countries. Farmers would keep bears in small cages for 10 years or more, and then kill them for their body parts. By 2014, around 1,000 bears were still living on these farms. Until now. The ban is now in effect, and 34 bears have already been rescued and moved to a government shelter in Korea. Efforts are underway to rescue the remaining 199 bears still held on 11 farms. Environment Minister Kim Sung-hwan says protecting all these bears is the government's priority. Even while rescue efforts continue, bear farming is now finally illegal. Over in Northern Europe, Norway just hit a milestone no other country has reached. In their latest numbers, electric vehicles made up 97% of all new car sales. Back in 2017, they set the bold target to end fossil fuel car sales by 2025. And they backed it up with policy. And now, out of nearly 180,000 new vehicles registered, only 487 were pure gasoline cars. Now, let's take a look at good news from the medical world. Researchers have developed a new way to deliver antibody treatments. Currently, these treatments require patients to visit a hospital for intravenous infusions. Here's the problem. Antibodies are mixed in large amounts of liquid, so patients need at least 100 milliliters per dose. That large amount has to be delivered slowly, which takes hours. But now, MIT engineers have found a solution. They developed a method to concentrate antibodies into solid particles. Think of it like turning syrup into sugar cubes. The same amount of medicine now takes up far less space. A full dose fits into just 2 milliliters, small enough for a quick injection with a regular syringe. This could make treatment much easier for elderly patients and anyone who has trouble making frequent hospital visits. It could also mean lower prices and better access for people in remote areas. Plus, new medications could be developed faster, since studies would be simpler to run. Right now, the technology is still being tested in animals. And if it works, patients could soon receive their treatment through a simple injection, instead of spending hours at a hospital infusion center. There has also been a major development in clean energy. But before we get into the good news about this offshore wind project in Virginia, I want to thank Delete Me for sponsoring this video. So there's this whole industry of data brokers that collect our personal data, your name, email, phone number, even your home address, and sell it to whoever wants it. And that just doesn't feel right, especially since it feels like we never gave them permission to do this. When our data is openly available, we become vulnerable to scammers and identity theft. But luckily, we have rights to get our names off of these lists. That's why I started using Delete Me. I gave them permission to act on my behalf, and they went out filing all these removal requests, hundreds of them. I don't have the time or patience to do that myself. But now, I can check this clean and pretty report every quarter and just watch my data disappear from these lists. Big fan of their service, grateful that they exist and that they support Good News. There's a link in my description, joindeleteme.com/goodnews. When you click the link, it helps support the channel, and you also get a huge 20% off when you use Good News. And now, let's get back to renewable energy. In December, we mentioned Virginia's massive offshore wind project. It's an $11.2 billion wind farm off the coast that will power 660,000 homes. We said it would be completed by the end of this year. and a lot of you guys wrote comments to correct us. Because in late December, Trump's administration stopped the construction, citing national security concerns. But there's an update now. Dominion Energy had already invested nearly $9 billion before the government ordered work to stop. That's why the company took the government to court, and a federal judge sided with them. The ruling allows construction to continue while the lawsuit plays out. Despite the 3-week shutdown, the project is still expected to finish on schedule by the end of 2026. And this wasn't the only offshore wind project winning in court. Another company called Ørsted also got the green light to restart their wind farm. The project is nearly 90% complete and will power 350,000 homes when it starts delivering electricity within the coming weeks. The same happened for Equinor's wind farm. That one will power 500,000 homes and should be fully operational by 2027. With these court victories, all 3 major offshore wind projects are moving forward again. But the good news for our planet doesn't stop there. Scientists just developed a filter that removes 99% of microplastics from laundry. Microplastics are tiny plastic particles that end up in our water, oceans, and even our food. They are so small that regular treatment plants can't filter them out. For example, every load of synthetic laundry releases up to 700,000 microplastic fibers into the water system. That adds up to over 500,000 tons of microfibers entering the oceans each year. Washing machine filters exist, but they clog so often that people just give up on them. So, German researchers at the University of Bonn studied how fish handle a similar challenge. These fish filter tiny plankton from water using cone-shaped structures in their mouths. The cone shape makes particles roll down toward the throat instead of piling up and clogging. The researchers copied this design for a washing machine filter. Microplastic fibers roll along the cone-shaped mesh into a collection chamber. The filter captures 99% of microplastic fibers and clogs much less than existing filters. The team has already filed a patent and now plans to adapt the technology for home washing machines. Staying in Europe, there's good news from London. The city recorded the lowest murder rate in more than a decade, with 97 homicides in 2025. The murder rate dropped to 1.1 per 100,000 residents. That's lower than Paris, New York, and Berlin. London's mayor points out that focused work of the police and greater diversion efforts by youth workers were responsible for this. Up next, a volunteer program that started in Denmark has now spread worldwide. And for this story, we did something special. Our team member Hendrik spoke with the director of Cycling Without Age.
So my name is Pernille Vedersøy-Bysson, and I am the director of Cycling Without Age.
Cycling Without Age brings generations together through bike rides that build relationships across age groups. Volunteers take elderly people and others who can't ride bikes on trips using trishaws.
So a trishaw is a 3-wheel bike, but instead of cargo, we ride with people.
The idea started in 2012 in Copenhagen.
Cycling Without Age was invented by Ole Kassow, who is still doing Cycling Without Age and promoting it all over the world. He was very interested at the time in random acts of kindness and new ways to foster relationships. So he saw an elderly gentleman sitting in front of a nursing home close to where he was living. And he thought Ole enjoyed his daily commute by bicycle, and he looked at this man and saw that he probably wasn't cycling anymore. And then that's how he got this idea. First lived in Mumbai, and then I was in Singapore, and I realized that a lot of places have had cycling cultures, but in many places that culture has been set aside to make room for more cars and car-centric urban planning.
Over a decade later, the program now operates in 3,500 locations across 41 countries with 6,000 bikes. And it has provided over 5 million rides. Researchers at Heriot-Watt University found that rides significantly improved participants' sense of well-being, increased their energy levels, and reduced their stress.
You are active in 41 different countries. Have there been any other recent milestones or achievements that were especially meaningful to you? recently?
Some of the things that I have been very happy about and that makes me smile, younger pilots or riders. There is a high school here in Copenhagen where they have, as part of their curriculum, they go to the local nursing home and they ride with the residents there.
With spring now arriving in the Northern Hemisphere, riding season can start again. An international summit for cycling without age will take place in Budapest in September.
Apart from cycling without age, I really want to encourage everybody to ride a bike, to ask their municipality to make sure that there are bike lanes, that it should be safe and enjoyable to ride a bike.
Such an inspiring project. Now, let's take a look at another positive development in medicine. The FDA just approved Nereus, the first new motion sickness treatment in over 40 years. About 1 in 4 adults experiences motion sickness. That's roughly 70 million Americans who could benefit from this new treatment. Unlike older motion sickness drugs, this one blocks a different pathway in the brain that triggers nausea and vomiting. The company tested Nereus in 2 major trials on boats. Participants were randomly given either the real drug or a placebo. This tests whether the drug actually works or if people just feel better because they think they are being treated. In 2 trials with over 300 people, Nereus reduced the risk of vomiting by 50 to 70%. The drug does have side effects though, mainly sleepiness and fatigue. When it launches in the coming months, it could offer people with motion sickness another option. While scientists work on treatments for humans, conservationists in Australia are protecting endangered animals. Kangaroo Island is home to several species found nowhere else on Earth. However, in the early 1800s, European settlers brought cats to Australia. Native animals like the Kangaroo Island dunnet had no defense against this new predator. This tiny mouse-sized animal became endangered as feral cat populations spread across the island over the next 2 centuries. By 2019, the situation became critical. That December, lightning strikes triggered massive bushfires that destroyed over 90% of the dunnet's habitat. Ecologist Pat Hodgins watched feral cats move across the burned landscape. They hunted down the few surviving dunnets, hiding in small, unburned patches. Conservationists knew they had to act fast. Within 6 weeks, they built a cat-proof enclosure around one of the last surviving dunnet populations. They then removed all the cats from inside. Today, 5 years after the fence was completed, dunnet populations have roughly doubled. Without cats hunting them, the dunnets could finally breed and survive. Even ground-nesting birds like the western whipbird had disappeared from the area because cats hunted them. But now, they found their way back into the protected zone, and their numbers roughly doubled too. And before we get to the last 2 stories, if you're enjoying our videos, don't forget to subscribe for more good news. Let's head back to the UK, where new laws are protecting children from junk food advertising. We are talking about ads for high-fat, sugar and salt products on TV before 9 p.m. And online, these ads are now banned at any time to tackle childhood obesity. The Advertising Standards Authority is enforcing the restrictions across these 13 categories. TV networks started following the rules voluntarily back in October. That was several months before the ban officially came into force. This meant the UK had its first ever low-sugar Christmas ad campaigns. The government estimates the ban will remove over 7 billion calories from children's diets each year. The new restrictions aren't perfect, but they significantly reduce how much junk food advertising children are exposed to. And in China, environmental policies have led to major improvements. In Beijing, air pollution has dropped dramatically since the 2008 Olympics. Back then, images of grey, smoggy skies became one of the most talked about stories of those games. Athletes refused to compete because of the pollution. Today, Beijing just recorded its cleanest year ever. The city had 311 days with good or moderate air quality and only 1 heavily polluted day. Back in 2013, it had 58 heavily polluted days. So, what changed? China's government started restricting coal-fired power plants. They banned gas-powered cars from driving 1 day per week based on their license plate numbers. They also made it much harder to register new gas cars by creating a lottery system. where millions of people compete for limited spots. Electric vehicles skipped the lottery entirely and could also drive every day. Obviously, that pushed buyers toward electric vehicles instead. Back in 2020, only 5% of new cars sold in China were electric. Today, that number has jumped to over 50%. But let's be clear, Beijing's air quality still has a long way to go, as it's still unhealthy. It's about 5 times higher than the WHO's ideal guideline. But the city has reduced its air pollution by 67% in just over a decade. It's proof that consistent policy and clean technology can turn things around, even in the world's most polluted cities. So, which of these good news stories did you like the most? As always, let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to get your data removed from the internet, make sure to try Delete Me with our link in the description to get 20% off. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!